In the deepest, darkest corners of the craggy mountains, where even the hardiest moss fears to grow, a goblin scouting party scurried through the shadows. Their names were Grib, Snarl, and Pox, and their mission was simple: find anything shiny or edible. But today, their sniveling turned to stunned silence. Grib, chasing a particularly plump cave lizard, tumbled down a loose scree slope and landed with a thud against something solid. It wasn't a rock. It was a door, cloaked in ivy and thyme, carved with the stern, bearded faces of dwarves. An ancient dwarven mine entrance, forgotten by the world. Snarl and Pox scrambled down after him. With a combined effort of shoving and grunting, they pried the stone door open just enough to squeeze through. The air that rushed out was stale, tasting of ancient dust and cold stone. But something else caught their eye. Faint, alluring shimmer from deep within the darkness. Torches were hastily lit, the sputtering flames revealing a sight that made their beady eyes widen in disbelief. A thick, unbroken vein of gold, gleaming in the torchlight like a frozen river of sunlight. Untouched, pure, they scrambled back to the surface, chattering with a chaotic excitement that bordered on hysteria. The news spread through the goblin warren like wildfire. Their chief, a hulking brute named Grok with a single milky eye, listened to their babbling report. His mind, usually consumed with thoughts of the next raid or a bigger mushroom stew, was suddenly filled with a singular, dazzling vision. Mountains of gold, enough to build a throne. Enough to forge crowns for every goblin. Enough to make them kings of the mountains. Without a moment's hesitation, he let out a guttural roar. The mine was theirs. The age of goblin gold had begun. The descent into the dwarven mine, which they grandly named Grox's Glory, was a far cry from a triumphant march. The goblins, a chaotic horde armed with rusty cleavers and crude spears, tumbled into the darkness. The dwarven architects had not built for fools. Almost immediately, Snarl triggered a pressure plate, and a volley of rusty darts shot from the walls, narrowly missing his oversized ears. Deeper in, Pax almost fell into a camouflaged pit, saved only by Grib grabbing his tunic at the last second. The air grew thick with the groans of stressed rock and the drip-drip-drip of water echoing in the vast unseen chambers below. Despite the dangers, the allure of gold drove them onward. They found abandoned mine carts, their wooden frames petrified, filled with unrefined ore that still glittered promisingly. On a dusty workbench, a set of dwarven forging tools lay as if their owner had just stepped away for a moment, centuries ago. And everywhere, the gold. It wasn't just in veins. It was in glittering flakes embedded in the walls, in small, pure nuggets scattered across the floor like a careless god's pocket change. Paranoia began to fester. A sideways glance was misinterpreted as a claim on a particular nugget. A cough was seen as a distraction to steal a find. The deeper they went, the grander the mine became, its scale dwarfing their comprehension. This wasn't a simple hole in the ground. It was a subterranean kingdom, and they were just rats scurrying in its forgotten halls. The sheer, overwhelming abundance of gold began to rot the goblins' already fragile unity. What started as minor squabbles over small nuggets escalated into vicious brawls. 2 goblins were found at the bottom of a chasm, their claws still locked onto the same glittering rock. Grok's roars for order were increasingly ignored as goblins stuffed their pockets, their bags, even their mouths, with the precious metal. The mine itself seemed to react to their avarice. Strange tremors shook the tunnels, sending dust and rock cascading down. Pockets of bizarre, shimmering gas would appear and vanish, causing vivid hallucinations of treasure, turning to dust or rivals plotting betrayal. While scrabbling at a particularly rich vein, Grib's claws scraped against something that wasn't stone. He brushed away the gold dust to reveal ancient dwarven runes, carved directly into the rock face. They pulsed with a faint, cold light. Though none of them could read the intricate script, the carvings depicted scenes of warning. Dwarves fleeing in terror. shadowy figures rising from the rock, and a final ominous rune shaped like a closing eye. It was a clear warning, a protective ward meant to keep something in or keep intruders out. But to the gold-maddened goblins, it was just another obstacle between them and their fortune. They ignored the chilling message and began hacking at the wall with renewed, desperate fervor. As they broke through the wall of runes, the air temperature plummeted. The flickering torchlight revealed a vast central chamber. The source of the mine's immense wealth was here, a colossal crystalline heart of pure gold, pulsing with a soft internal light. But they were not alone. As the first goblin lunged toward it, shimmering forms rose from the ground. They weren't ghosts, not exactly. They were magical constructs, ethereal dwarven sentinels forged from residual magic and a timeless duty. Their forms were indistinct, their weapons blades of pure light, their eyes burning with cold, silent fury. The goblins, masters of ambush and chaotic swarm tactics, were utterly outmatched. Their rusty swords passed through the guardians as if through smoke. Their arrows and rocks met no resistance. In return, the sentinels moved with silent, implacable grace. A single touch from their light-forged axes didn't cut, but it drained the life and warmth from a goblin, leaving them a cold, gray husk. Panic erupted. This wasn't a fight for gold. It was a fight for survival. The goblins realized with dawning horror that the treasure wasn't just protected, it was bait. The cost of this gold was not measured in sweat and toil, but in their very souls. Grok, his eye wide with a terror that eclipsed his greed, stood before the pulsing heart of gold. His remaining goblins cowered behind him, trapped between the silent advancing guardians and the only exit, which was now blocked by more of the spectral dwarves. The heart of the mine pulsed faster, its golden light seeming to call to him, promising him everything he'd ever dreamed of. He could make a final, desperate grab for a piece of it, a last act of defiance. Or he could lead his people, what was left of them, in a hopeless fight for their lives. The choice was stark: insatiable greed or survival. In that moment, the mine revealed its final secret. The golden heart was not a treasure. It was a prison, a containment unit for an ancient, formless entity that fed on greed. The Dwarven guardians weren't protecting the gold from intruders. They were protecting the world from what the gold contained, by breaking the wards and indulging their avarice. The goblins were weakening the prison, slowly releasing the entity within. Grok looked at the terrified faces of Grib and Pox, then at the glittering, malevolent heart. With a roar that was not of greed, but of fury and despair, he turned his back on the gold. He chose his kin. He chose to live. He ordered the retreat, a mad, desperate scramble back through the treacherous tunnels, harried every step by the silent guardians who now sought only to drive them out to reseal the mine. Few made it out. Battered, broken, and with not a single speck of gold to show for their ordeal, the survivors stumbled back into the moonlight, forever changed. The legend of Grok's glory became a cautionary tale, a whispered horror story told to young goblins to warn them of the dangers of avarice. They had discovered the greatest treasure imaginable, and in doing so had found only their own ruin. They escaped the mine's grasp, but its shadow would forever linger in their greedy little hearts, a chilling reminder that some treasures are best left buried.